We're very happy to have here Wojtek. I'm gonna butcher it. Wojtek Blecharz? Is that correct? Blecharz. It's right there.
Yeah.
Who is a fantastic and very accomplished composer living in Berlin. He has his PhD from the University of California, San Diego, and has been commissioned and worked with loads of various festivals and companies, Donaueschingen, Darmstadt, and you have an ongoing working relationship with a theater in Poland, is that right? In Krakow?
In Warsaw.
In Warsaw. Okay, wonderful. And so thank you so much for joining us. I know we spoke a little bit about a recent piano concerto and a number of works for wireless speakers, and we're looking forward to hearing all about it.
Hi, I'm Wojtek Blecharz, and I'm very, very happy to be here. I don't teach on a regular basis, so it's always exciting for me to be with students and to share my work with other composers. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about my process, how I work, and how it all started. Also, I decided to talk about it from this perspective because I was also, like when I think of myself 10 years ago, I was in some sort of like crisis. I was in the middle of my PhD. I was not sure about what is the identity of my music, where should it go, and this is how this entire process started. And I'm here because we saw each other last time in Donaueschingen with Jason, and I had the premiere of my third symphony for 200 wireless speakers and 5 performers. And we decided that maybe I could talk a little bit about this piece. 45 minutes. It's a really short period of time, but maybe I'll skip. I will not play any like too many musical examples. You can know it's all on YouTube or on my website. I will just try to share as much as possible. But to talk about this symphony for 200 wireless speakers, I would like to go, as I said, I would like to go back 10 years ago and to talk about my opera installations, because this is how it all started, and how I started to search for non-normative ways to present sound, to experience sound, like to redefine the whole concept of concert music as well, because it all started with some sort of disappointment. In 2012, I went for the first time to Darmstadt, and I was super excited about it, and the festival, and I was just surprised that for 2 weeks I was going sometimes to 3 concerts per day, and it was just concert after concert after concert with concert music, with seated audience in a very stuffy space. And I was asking myself, this is the way how I came here to see all possible forms of new music, and it looks like there's only one way, like a string quartet, piece for piano and something, and I was very disappointed with that, to be honest. And I like concert music, to make it clear, but it was just this disproportion between hybrids, right? This is what you're doing in this lab. Also, you're creating hybrids. And that this disproportion, that the hybrids were always somewhere on the side, not not as regarded as a piece, for example, written for a Didi quartet, and so on and so on. So it was also the same time when I got my first major commission from Grand Theatre National Opera in Warsaw. And I was supposed to write an opera, right? So I had to figure out what can I do as a composer, how can I touch this monster that opera is. And from the very first time, I knew that I don't want to compose an opera. I don't want to set text to music. That I don't want to make operas where communicating through singing is the most important element of the opera. I find it very artificial, very outdated. It just doesn't work for me, when I see 2 people singing on stage. I love opera as the genre, because opera from its very beginning was able to combine different fields of arts, and in this way create completely new ways of expressivities. And this aspect of opera fascinates me. But for a person born in 1981, setting text to music is quite irrelevant. So I was thinking, what are the fields of arts for me, relevant for me, or for the times where I live, and how we can combine them to create new qualities. So step by step, This is how I started to work with opera installation, and then also at some point with symphonies, because I never thought that I would ever compose a symphony in my life. Who would do something like that? You know, this genre is completely used and dead in a way. But you know, I was also thinking a lot about my heritage, and actually, you know, a symphonic form is a part of my heritage. I was growing up with those forms, and they meant a lot to me at some point. So I started to think, okay, so maybe there is a way to transform the symphony into something else. So I will start and I will just, it will be like a short introduction with symphony number 3 for 200 wireless speakers and 5 performers. And at the end, I will try to come back to this piece and to say something else about it. But shortly speaking, it's a piece for 200 small portable wireless speakers. As you can see, they're placed on the floor, and they're not synchronized. This is the first. This is the most typical question I usually get. They are not synchronized. They're operated. They have memory cards, so they're operated manually. I turn on and turn off every speaker manually in the space, or I bring speaker one by one to the space and I activate them. And I wanted to work. I like to work with, I wanted to work with an everyday object, like the speaker is an everyday object. I wanted to work with something that is quite, like low tech. This is what was fascinating me at that time, and I also wanted to be able to move those speakers in space, and to kind of like build, sound sculptures out of those speakers, like to move those speakers in space, like I would sculpt in them. And the 200 wireless speakers, the number is quite random. This is we had that much money to be able to order 200 wireless speakers. But also this is, like this continuation of pieces like Poème symphonique by György Ligeti for 100 metronomes, right? Or there is another piece for Poème electronique by Xenakis and Blecharz, yes, Blecharz, which was for 400 in the Sony Pavilion in Brussels, which was for 400 something speakers. I don't remember the 472 or something like that. So anyway, so there's, and also the Mahler, his 8th symphony, the Symphony of 1000. There's this concept that the orchestra is growing and expanding, and it consists of many instruments, because this is my orchestra, right? It's very difficult to work with orchestras in general for us, right? As composers. We get so much attitude from those people very often. They are so rude and bitchy. So what's the fucking point, if we can replace humans with small machines? And I can rehearse with my orchestra. Yes, I can rehearse with my orchestra for as long as I want. I just have to charge them from time to time, and nobody complains. So this symphony, it's a critique of an orchestra, which are very often very problematic institutions, male dominated, very patriarchal, and as like, to make it clear, I had also good experiences with orchestras. I had bad and good experiences with orchestras. Like last year I had a premiere of my largest orchestral work with the Polish Radio Symphony Orchestra in Katowice. And it was a big challenge for them, because the orchestra was divided in 10 groups, and they were sitting, in 10 different spaces of the foyer, and the audience was walking between them. And first they were completely aggressive and hostile towards me, but then step by step it totally worked out. So it's also possible to have good experiences with orchestras, but in most of the cases not so good. And also what I experienced from the viola concertmeister, that was beyond anything. Yeah,
You want to elaborate?
I just told him that I am not going to communicate with him anymore. That he's so rude that this is beyond. I know that you are standing, sir, next to me, but I'm not going to communicate with you. I don't see you. So
Well,
yeah. Anyway, so here we have the orchestra of wireless speakers. The symphony is also a reference to two revolutions, to the Industrial Revolution. That was the first moment when instruments of the same type were able to manufacture in Europe. So the digital. The Industrial Revolution also influenced the growing sizes of late Romantic orchestras, and the second revolution, of course, is the digital revolution, and to be more specific, the 1972, the invention of Walkman. So it's such a simple thing, and so basic, but I think we take it for granted, and invention of Walkman for the first time in human perception and history of music. Allowed us to have our own private, immersive sound horizon, and we were also able to move with this personal sound horizon, and I find it fascinating. And so this is the introduction to the third symphony. I will get back to it, but there was the second symphony before the third symphony, of course, and this one was for this symphony is open to any type of musician. So the shape of this, when I used to curate a small music festival in Warsaw called Instalakcje. Your professor was also part of one of I think the second or the third one, and we were playing.
Fond memories of that.
We likewise, yeah. So this whole festival was dedicated to all types of hybrids. So performative installation, concert installation, social projects, sound sculpture, video works. Everything what is not concert music, and the social projects were a very important part of this festival, because every year we would invite the local audience to come to the theater and to play sounds with us. And for many people, new music is very inaccessible, difficult, but on the other hand, it allows you to actually prepare a piece of music in a very short period of time, and to have joy of making this. So on the first festival, we played Eine Brise by Maurizio Kagel for 111 bicyclists. On the second one, we played Having Never Written a Note for Percussion solo by James Tenney, and the audience was playing on different types of gongs and junk that we found. We played Branches by John Cage. We played Paulina Oliveros. We played Laura Hindel, Michael Pizarro, Ricefall, with senior citizens of Warsaw. So every year, it was also for me like a playground, this festival, to work with non-professional musicians, however it sounds, or non-classically trained musicians, and to also work with participatory audience, because at some point also participatory audience became like an important element of my work. So, but symphony also number 2, it might be interesting for you, because we all deal with the same problem. I am like a freelancing musician. I live only from making music, so it's like a very unsustainable, precarious environment to live with, right? And sometimes we compose pieces and we put so much heart and we put so much time in it, and we are lucky if the piece is played 3 times, right? Very often those pieces are not played more than 3 or 5 or sometimes even 1 time, yet we put so much effort in it. So I decided that Symphony Number 2, it has some elements that belong to Symphony Number 2, but the form will always change, and it will consist quotes from my previous other pieces that I want to be played again. But also those quotes depend on what kind of musicians come to what kind of musicians will create the orchestra. It was commissioned by a theater in Zagreb in Croatia, and it was done in this amazing building. It's called the French Pavilion. It was built in the 30s, and it has one of the most amazing 14-second reverbs. The space is insane, and it looks like this, secular kind of temple also. So it was great to work there, and it was an open call in Zagreb. We had 16 people. Some of them were from the radio choir, some of them were completely random people, and we had 2 weeks to create an orchestra and to make more than 2 hours of music. And Symphony Number 1 for orchestra in 4 groups and walking audience. This was commissioned by the Szczecin Philharmonics. Szczecin is a town near German border. If you have time, I truly recommend for a day trip to see this amazing building, this iceberg. This is the Szczecin Philharmonic. It's super, super beautiful. or if you want to come, it will not take place in that building, but I'm actually in 2 weeks I'm doing a diploma with the students from Szczecin Academy of Music, and they will play the second symphony actually. So I can send you the dates later. So it's organized by Alicja Pilarczyk. This is how it looks inside. It's an amazing building which was awarded many times, designed by a architecture studio from Barcelona. So the orchestra was divided in 4 groups. For example, this was the space for the string section. So the string players, violin and viola players, they were located in the spiral case, and the audience was walking between those groups of masses of sound, and they were able to the audience was also instructed how to listen to this piece, following Paulina Oliveros's notion that sound is the map and walking is listening. So we are supposed to walk slowly between those masses of sound. Do not talk, you can take your shoes off. When I was doing the other orchestral piece in Katowice, also another like a brand new amazing venue, beautiful, we asked people to take their shoes off, but we gave them socks, so they could put like soft socks, and so then those sometimes you have to use those tricks to make the environment friendly for you, but because you don't want people to you don't want to hear any heels or shoes, and people just loved it, and so they were like old school museum sliding around the foyer of the venue of the Polish Symphony Orchestra, Radio Symphony Orchestra. But anyway, so, and they had like little tasks to be done. For example, there was an instruction that you have to find a room with blue light. You have to go on stage and lay down on the floor, on the stage. So the main hall is encrusted with 24-karat gold, because this is in this building. On top of that, it's an amazing concept, because this is the treasury, because sound is, sound is our treasure. So the concert hall is encrusted with gold to preserve this most magical and precious treasure that sound is. But there's also the chamber music hall, and this is the hall that we used. So people had to find that chamber hall, and they had to go on stage. So once again, like to break I always like to destroy the borders between the audience and the musicians. They had to lay down on stage, and I used like really heavy subwoofers on stage, so the stage was vibrating with bass frequencies to constantly remind also people and listeners and the audience that sound is a vibration and the perception is embodied. That we don't, that music is not just an abstract process that happens just in our minds and ears, but we actually perceive music in our entire bodies. So this is also an important aspect of my work. But so those 3 symphonies, they happened after I did some operatic works, and the first opera is called Transcriptum, and it was commissioned by National Opera in Warsaw. And as I told you, my first thing was that I don't want to set text to music, and so I was thinking, okay, so if I'm not working with literature, if I'm not working with traditional libretto, what should I do? What is the more relevant for me field of art than text? And then I thought, okay, installation art. That this is what matters to me, because installation art opens my perception in a completely different way than traditional concert. When I go to a gallery, when I go to see an installation, I can compose my time in space. I create different relationship between the object and me. I can installation art is also open for participatory audience, as I said. Different concept of time, different concept of space, and different relation to the object. So I decided that instead of working with a librettist, I would be working with visual artists. And I invited a sculptor to work on this opera, and a light designer as well, Ewa Maria Śmigielska and Wojtek. and they were working for me. But what I wanted to do, the libretto of the opera was the psychological trauma. And I wanted to place the viewer, my audience, inside of the structure of psychological trauma, which is chaotic, alinear, which returns to your memory in a very, broken order. And it was fascinating for me. And I was thinking, like, how can I recreate this chaotic, non-linear structure of psychological trauma and make an opera about it? Oh, this is still the Szczecin Philharmonic. Anyway, I was. It's a fragment from my PhD dissertation, which I wrote actually about transcriptum and about what I understand by opera installation. So, in a very, very small nutshell, I always play a little bit with the Italian meaning of the word opera, which means work. And I see opera as work with sound, work about sound, work through sound, and so on and so on. So there's lots of sound working. Sound is our protagonist always in the opera, and installation because as I said, like installation art seemed to be the most relevant field of art at that time, and I wanted to combine it. So opera installation is usually a site-specific work, and it has a libretto or a concert libretto that is worked through sound, right? So I wanted to take the psychological trauma and to work it through sound in this opera. But the libretto doesn't have to be a story. It can be a code, a scenario, a script, a drama, dance notation, musical score, or tradition, various combinations of those, and different methods and practices and ways to work it out. So according to this understanding of textuality, an image or a group of images, or can be a text, a sculpture, a film, a musical passage, a sequence of sound effects, constitute text, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so transcriptum has these are the details that I would probably have to skip because we don't have that much time. But so transcriptum has like two librettos, the big one, the concept libretto, but also at the end, I wrote a small story because that story was used as a tool to guide the viewers through the piece itself, and it's a story about a woman. Who experienced something very, very dark and very tragic in her life. Something terrible happened. There was a fire of her house, and in that fire, her husband died, but her son survived this fire. And after that fire, she takes her son and goes with the son by the lake, and something tragic happens there, but we don't know yet what happens. And we will find out on our way when we will be exploring the memory of this woman. So yeah, I always encourage you to whatever you do, always try to find some personal meaning in your work and create some sort of like personal connection. So transcriptum is a site-specific opera on psychological trauma that must be installed in an existing space. And this is also an opera designed for an interactive audience that physically explores the space of the opera. And so, for example, here you can see the audience reading the small libretto. And it was, here you see a file, and there is... in this file, it's like a memory, the memory of this woman. And sometimes you have like bits of text on each page. Sometimes you have a single sentence. Sometimes there's a burnt match, like a physical object, like a thread of her, and so on and so on. And you can hear her breath in the headsets. And this is this is the only moment in the opera where you can actually read her story, where you can try to figure out, but it's still like very, very confusing, but at least you can, okay, she was getting ready, the child was crying, she was so furious, she left home, she went to the shop, she came back because the son wanted to get a new toy, she came back home, the house was burnt, he was dead, the child survived, and so on and so on. It's composed for voice, cello, alto flute, 2 percussion, 2 accordions, and a contrabass clarinet. And it happened 11 years ago. Okay. By the way, today I think is the 11th. It was exactly on that day 11 years ago. Is it May 13th today? Yes.
Yes.
14.
14.
30.
30.
Dreit.
Wirklich?
Yeah.
So, and what was fascinating me also in psychological trauma, psychological trauma, when we experience trauma, it's so extreme that it goes outside of our memory, that it goes outside of our perception. And this trauma, it hides in this like black box somewhere outside of our understanding, and then it oozes back. It returns to our memory as flashbacks, as nightmares, as repressed memories, and it starts to haunt us. And sometimes people, they don't remember something. I had to read a lot of psychological psychology literature for my PhD to understand how it works, and to read lots of testimonies of the traumatized people. And so there's lots of cases where people don't remember what happened to them. And sometimes, it returns after like 25 years and you just realize something absolutely shocking about your past. So this building itself was like the main inspiration for this opera. It's a giant structure. It was built after the war in this like Soviet, style. Very monumental. There is like 1,200 people working in this building. It's like a city within a city. It's very Lynchian, very Kafkaesque structure. You get lost. I usually have like very good orientation, and I would always get lost there, and that was fascinating for me. And then I decided that I will direct this opera on my own. That I couldn't find, the theater directors. They always want to do something, against you, or they have like mythology, blah blah blah. And so at some point the director of the opera house, he couldn't stand me anymore. He was like, do it yourself. And I did. But I also decided, I was like, because what the most fascinating part of this building is all the offstage spaces. All those like different weird rooms where they build things. You can. It's one of the largest in Europe. This is the main stage of this theater, and you can place on the main stage just entire La Scala building. So this is the scale of this of this building. It's insane. And places like that, empty halls. This is the laundry room. So in Transcriptum, we have 5 groups of audience. So the audience, they come to the opera house and they gather in the auditorium, but they are already divided because each person has a number. So we have 5 groups of audience, 5 trails, 5 main spaces of the opera, which are the grand trap room, the grand paint shop, long, tall corridor, laundries, the lecture room. Everything is grand in the Grand Theatre National Opera. And we have also 5 phases of grief. So those phases of grief, they're connected to those trails. And here are the phases. So there is denial. The denial is connected to the grand trap room, and here we have a piece for cello solo. Then we have anger. It goes with laundry rooms, and a piece for contrabass clarinet. Bargaining, tall green corridor, 2 accordions, depression, the grand paint shop, and acceptance, the lecture room. This is the libretto. And also the architecture itself, it symbolizes the memory of the protagonist, of this woman. So she, the singer, she is actually here in the grand paint shop, which is on the 7th floor, on top of the building, while denial, the grand trap room, is it's an amazing space. It's a underbelly of the main stage. So it's on level -1, and this is where the darkest seed of the story is hidden. There's also the ghost of her husband in that space. And so I told you there are like 5 trails and 5 groups of people, and they explore those spaces at the same time. So this work required a lot of stopwatching, and we use like 2 large cargo elevators. One of them is like 30 meters long. It's like a room that goes down. But what I want to point out, each group will read the libretto in a different moment of their trail. And this is what I wanted. It was very important for me because trauma always returns to your memory in a non-linear order. So there is no one way to remember things. So, for example, And also confusion is a very important element of this experience. So group number 1, they are the most confused group because they walk through the spaces and they see all those elements, what the fuck, and then at the end they read the libretto. They finally read the story of the woman. And when they walk through the spaces, they encounter like different installations, different objects. They're actresses. All female performers are dressed in the same way. They represent the woman. There are fragments of text and so on and so on and so on. So, for example, group number 5, they will start the experience with the libretto, and then they will walk around and see how it looks. So we can find it on YouTube. The pieces, most of them that belong to Transcriptum. If you want to see. This is the small paint shop. This is one of the light installations. I was not myself. It's one of the most frequent things that traumatized people say when they experience something extreme in their life. They say, "I don't remember. I were not myself. If I was not myself." So also fragments of the libretto are. This is the big cargo elevator. With live video projection, so you take this elevator to go to see the underbelly of the ground trap room, and this is the underbelly, and this is the cello solo piece, and here you can see the ghost of her husband who haunts her behind her, and also the way how she plays the cello. It's inspired by Julia Kristeva's Black Sun. This is the cello is the object of mourning, but also the object of love. So she's trying to recall him. This is the grand paint shop with a very interesting dome, which was designed. This is where they paint and dry the largest pieces of the stage sets, and it was designed in the 60s this way that the room is like 50 meters long, and so you don't have to yell to each other. When two painters work together, they don't have to yell to each other. They can whisper, and the whisper like perfectly travels around this dome. But when you start to sing and not to whisper, then crazy, there's so much like sound reflection. It's so trippy in a way, because especially when you walk to the center of the space and you talk to yourself at the same time, and when you are reaching the center of the space, you start to hear your voice like exactly behind you, and then you look back and there's no one. And this is where the main character is, and so she's sitting there and she's being haunted. She's being haunted by her own voice. So here you can see the scale. This is her and flute and percussion, and there is 2,900 something black boxes. This is exactly as many boxes as letters in the libretto, which were hand painted by they were very happy to do that by the opera house. And because, as I told you, like in many theories, trauma is also compared to this like black box, black container kind of. This is one of the halls with another light installation, returning and dreams, and also it's with smoke and with light projection. So when you walk through this corridor, you have an impression like you would be going underwater, which is kind of important because I told you that she went. Sometimes you have to check every possible option, but she went by the lake with her son, and she pushed him and she drowned him. Her child at the end. But okay, so that was like a very, very express way to explain how it all started, how this whole concept of opera installation came to me, and then I moved from this darkness and from this amazing building. We did another version of Transcriptum also on another festival in basements. Without any map, without any division for groups, you would come on your own and you would just have to listen to sound and explore the dark basements on your own. And it was very challenging for some people. Some people didn't make it through room number 1 because it was just too scary for them. But I love that part. It was it worked out very, very, very nicely. But from the basements and from the darkness, I moved to a park. And I got another commission from another theater in Warsaw, and this is how Park Opera was created. If you're by any chance in Austria in July, I'll be doing a new version of Park Opera at Karinthische Sommer Festival on a tiny, amazing island in the middle of an alpine lake with mountain views. So If you're around, come. So Park Opera. So here the libretto for is our connection to nature, but also how we listen to the sounds in nature, how we tune in. It's very like post Schaefer and Oliveros inspired, and it's about noise pollution and also about like active listening, how we listen to sounds, how we can filter, how listening is an active process. How we have to filter the noise pollution in public spaces and so on and so on. This park is located in the middle of Warsaw, so it's quite noise polluted. And there are different aspects of the operatic genre which are transposed and composed for this experience. So it's a sound walk in a way. People meet at the theater and they get a map and they can walk along here this space, and on their way they encounter those acts. And we have the first one is the foyer. There's a short videos where I invited like an opera singer and two Polish music critics, and they talk about opera from the perspective of nature. So Monika Pasiecznik is talking about Peter Ablinger's landscape opera. There's about Monteverdi's Orfeo and when Eurydice is bitten by a snake. There is also Janacek, the little cunning vixen. Then we have binoculars for sound. It's a collection of objects that we can place to our ears and filter the sounds. There's a stage set. I invited a local graffiti artist who made a graffiti that says, "I'm all ears." Ballet, it's a social project. It's a project dedicated to the local audience, to the joggers that usually come to the park and they jog. So if you can become a ballet dancer, you just come, you get a simple costume and two wireless speakers. So there was like a group of joggers running through the park, and each person would hold two wireless speakers with a specially composed track, and they would interact with people on their way and make like different types of like gates out of sound, and it's fun. There is, of course, we have animals in park opera in general. We have animals, but here I decided to use a special type of animal, which is the unicorn, and tell people that humans lost their ability to see unicorns, but there is a way actually to feel their presence. So people come and there is like a big circle made of hay with apples and rose petals around. And you get an audio guide, and there's a story. And I invited to this like a Polish equivalent of Sir David Attenborough. She's the narrator for all the nature documents on Polish television, and she tells people that it's a very hot afternoon, and this is the moment when the unicorns this is the feeding time. So if you want to feel their presence, you just have to go on the hay and you have to lay down, and you will feel their presence. And underneath there is about 20 transducers that make the ground vibrating like they. So it's a very pleasant thing, but also once again a reminder for people that we are Ich bin ganz Ohr, and we feel the sound with our entire bodies, and sound is a vibration. There's an aria. Aria always is like also site specific. I was doing this opera also at Rumlingen Festival in 2020, and I composed, for example, a new aria for Rumlingen. It was an aria dedicated to a bee that is extinct. In Warsaw, it was the mermaid's aria, because a mermaid is the symbol of Warsaw. We have chorus of bluebirds. It's a project for children, so children can also be involved in making opera. And it had 4 stages. The first one was it was a walk with an ornithologist. The kids were invited to walk around park with an ornithologist and to learn about the birds. The second one was an art workshop, and they had to paint pictures of imaginary birds based on poems that were written by a local poet together with his 4-year-old daughter. And then after the art workshop, there was a recording session, and the kids had to create sounds for those imaginary birds. And then out of this, there was a sound installation hidden in the bushes, also with small wireless speakers. Recitative is for toy piano. And there's also an overture for brass instruments, and at the end the audience can play the gong. The gong calls us, like in the opera house, the gong calls at the end of intermission, and here the gong is at the place where the park ends, and you are. Oh, these are the binoculars for sound. This is like the most fun part for adults mostly. Like, this is so surprising how much fun people have. This is the ballet from Rumlingen. In Rumlingen we had 4 dancers. This is the graffiti, I'm all ears. This is Arya the Mermaid. So here you had those headsets on long cables that were coming out of the lake. We also dropped a CO2 bottle in the lake, so the lake was bubbling like the mermaid was sitting there. And here you see an usher. Like, so when you start to listen to an aria, you are getting a raspberry candy, because aria is something very sweet, and the taste, the sense of taste should also be involved. This is the recitativo on toy piano, combining different quotes from different operas, like from Lachenmann, from Einstein on the Beach, from Tristan. Tristan meets Electra, meets Einstein on the Beach, meets Little Match Girl. These are the unicorns, and so on. Okay, so from the park, at the end of my PhD in San Diego, I was co-teaching a class with Professor Piotr Winkelmann at the psychology department, and it was class on embodied perception. So we were working with psychology students, and we were teaching them. Piotr was talking about embodied perception through the. We even did one of your pieces, I think. Yeah, for sure. The Generation Kill. Oh. Yeah. But anyway, it was all about perceptions embodied, right? And muscles and bones are involved in the process of listening, and so on and so on. And we should always remember about that, especially when we start to compose some like very boring piece of music, and we forget that sound is an energetic vibration that can actually stimulate us. So it's always good to remember about that. But in body opera, the most important thing, it was preceded by a long research, which ended up with a huge failure and basically like disposing a year and a half of research. Because I was so disappointed. I didn't know, it was originally what was supposed to be about a dancer for no reason. At the end, I decided that, so body opera is for the audience. Body opera is dedicated to the audience and to your body. Body opera is a critique of an operatic institution, and I see it more as an environment or a listening practice, because you come to the opera house and there is 100 mats, yoga mats, 100 pillows, 100 blankets, and 100 boxes with props that is used for the audience. So the first thing is that you come to the opera house and you can lay down, right? Very often the concert music situation is so unnatural that we are so overstimulated these days. And we don't have holistic places to appreciate sound. Very often we come to the symphony hall or to the opera house, and bam, we have to listen. We only have the overture. We are tired. We need to stretch a little bit. So you come to body opera and you can lay down on the mat. So first of all, your body is liberated, and the opera starts with a 20-minute nap. And at the end of this 20-minute nap, right? And then you're ready to listen to music. And at the end of this body opera, you start to realize that the pillow actually slowly it starts to vibrate, because in each of those pillows there is a transducer speaker, and so you can. I wanted to create this very very analog way to offer this embodied sound to a listener, and to feel the sound inside of. That was also a moment when I went to my first rave. And for me as a classically trained musician, when I went to the first rave, I was completely mind blown that that sound, the biggest love of my life, that I can feel it like this, like I would be wrapped in sound. So I wanted kind of in a very simple analog way to recreate this situation, but not only. So this is the mat, this is the pillow, this is how it looks. Only 650 meters of cables needed to be taped and set up. It's a person on a pillow in Corona times. This is a fragment from my retrospective in Berlin in Corona times, by the way. It was an excerpt. So body opera is also about reclaiming senses, right? Liberating our bodies and reclaiming also our senses. So in body opera there are also moments when the smell is involved, when the taste is involved as well. So this is the big version of the first version, not the big, the first version. Body opera was commissioned by Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival and Nowe Theatre in Warsaw. So this is how we started. 100 people are divided in 4 sectors. We had like Eva, the sculptor. She created those large sounding sheets of metal here. This is Wiebke. She's an expert in resonance technique. So after the nap, you wake up and then we have warm up. We warm up our body. And Wiebke, this is the technique that was started in the 80s, and it's mostly for musicians. So how to relax our body so we can feel the sound and produce a better sound out of our bodies. So body opera has different. It guides you through different ways of experiencing sound in this embodied way. And for example, there's also there's one moment called Candy Aria, which is a reference to sherbet arias that used to happen in opera Syria between the first and the second act, and it was always composed for the secondary characters like servants and so on, because the audience was finishing the desserts, and usually it was sorbets, so there was lots of noise coming from the spoons and eating. But Candy Aria, it's also a reference that humankind for centuries is using different psychoactive substances to expand perception. And, there's always this moment in the concert when we start to feel a little bit sleepy. So the audience is asked to open the box and to find a small plastic bag with crystal powder and to consume it. So the audience is taking drugs, but of course this is a pop rocking sugar, and that creates a very interesting, it probably from your childhood, like this sugar that pops in your mouth, like. Are you familiar with this? Sure. No? When were you born? Like this, exploding sugar in your mouth. You've never had it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You have some homework to be done. It's still available. It's still available in Germany. But it's called in English. It's called pop rock sugar. Yeah, but sometimes it comes with lollipops and stuff like that. But it creates so you eat the sugar and it pops in your mouth, it starts to explode. It creates those series of small funny explosions in your mouth. So in this situation, you become the concert hall, the instrument, and your very own audience at the same time. So it's like a very interesting perception, situation when you it also happens when you floss your teeth, right? When you floss your teeth, you're also your own instrument, your own audience, and your own concert hall at the same time. So it's a similar case. This is the audience warming up. There's another part, and in the first version of the piece, there was also a double bass player, a dancer, and a percussion player. But after some time, I decided, okay, this is not needed, and the new version of body opera is just the pillows and the experience with the pillows, because at the end of the show, we ask people to remove the most overused senses, to cover the eyes and to cover the ears. And when this happens, when you touch the pillow, you start to hear the sound in your bones, in your muscles. You start to hear the sound through the bone conduction. And this is, it's a kind of like time traveling gesture, because it takes us to the moment when we start to hear as human beings when we are 4 months old. And we are, suspended in the amniotic fluid in our mother's wombs. And when we start to hear, we hear 2 types of sound: the white noise that comes from our mother's body, and 2 cycles of rhythm: our heartbeat and our mother's heartbeat, which sometimes sync and then goes out of sync. So when we are born, the first thing that we will mourn, that we will grieve as human beings, is the second rhythm. We will never hear it again, of our mother's heartbeat. I find it very beautiful that this is like this is the first thing that we will miss in our lives, is actually the sound itself. So that was Body Opera, and I had a show in Pittsburgh in February at the Carnegie Mellon University, and the students actually built the whole setup. It was a lot of fun. And as promised, we have 5 minutes. We go back to symphony number 3, but I always want to tell about my opera installations, because they're very important for me, and they like summarize everything what is important in my work. You know, like to work with sound in a specific way, and to work with participatory audience, and also to be sensitive to the space where the music is played. And here we are. So at some point, I also started to think, okay, I can make symphonies if they are concert installations, right? Because concert installation is something different than opera installation. Opera installation has a libretto. There is like some story in it. There is some sort of theme. While in symphony, it's a more abstract work. It's a musical work that doesn't need any deeper story behind it. But of course, there's this is the very beginning of the symphony. So you see here they're prepared for other movements, and I'm starting with seven small speakers, and this is the score for the first movement. So when you enter the symphony, you can already see the first movement, and this is also kind of like Alice in Wonderland kind of thing, that we drink a magic potion and we can see the Allegro sonata form. We can walk between it, kind of, because so here is theme 1, 7 speakers. Then we have transition, theme 2. Then we have epilogue, and it's like a proper Allegro sonata form. I decide, okay, if I'm making a symphony for 200 wireless speakers, I'm totally going to play around those, nerdy elements, which I love. And then we have development, and then we have recapitulation. So I turn them on one by one manually, and they slowly start to grow. I always see it. So I am the conductor, right? But I didn't want to create like a patriarchal, figure of a conductor. I see myself more as a gardener, and I see them as seeds, and I walk between them, and I just activate them, and the sounds are growing out of them, and this musical sound garden starts to come to existence. And then, when they are all activated, you can walk between, for example, theme 1 in exposition, and then you can walk to theme 1 and recapitulation, and you realize that they are connected actually musically. That this is the same material, but just transposed. Here in the development, we have this X letter, which this line contains elements from the first theme, and this one contains elements of the motifs of the second theme, like in a classical symphony. But it creates this very soft, very ambient-y kind of soundscape, sound environment. All the sounds are I just generated them, from an analog synthesizer, and then I'm uploading those tracks on the speakers, and it takes about the first movement lasts about an hour. So it takes me about an hour. Lots of squats. I think that in the show lasts about 2 hours. 2 hours 50. We were trying to count. It was about at least 600 squats in the show. So yeah. Yeah, because I was trying to also, like we as composers, sometimes we lost connection with stage, like we don't perform anymore, right? Yet we demand other people to play our music. So I was like, I want to perform again, but I don't play any instrument anymore. What can I do? I can just make 600 squats and use 200 speakers, and yeah. The second movement is it has a different arrangements of speakers, and this one, the second movement, is dedicated like a kind of it's an homage to an endless library of sounds. Right? We are so privileged. We can go online and we can find any type of sound we can imagine these days. We can hear almost everything. So there are sounds from NASA, from space. So they are connected to different elements: earth, water, fire, and air. There is also some field recordings I took in Brandenburg. There's this amazing place, you should go there, in October in Linum in Brandenburg, like north from Berlin. There's a place where circa 70,000 cranes are migrating on their way to, it's mind-blowing. And of course there's the water sound. It's the recording of the whale song. So those iconic moments in the history of music, kind of, and they also create another like a very delicate soundscape. And this is how they are arranged. There's the instruction, how they should be started, and so on and so on and so on. The third movement. The speakers, these are like cheap, speakers. This is also interesting about the technology. The technology always technology extinct, and that the objects that we are using today, they won't be present anymore tomorrow. And for example, these speakers are not being produced anymore, although we bought them in 2019, but they can play, the sound wise they're quite good, quality wise they're quite good, but of course they cannot play bass sound. So I decided that in the third movement I will have the orchestra of 5 bass instruments, and there is the subcontrabass Petzold recorder, block flute, and 2 trombones and a contrabass clarinet. And this is our orchestra. And also what I see when I work with those speakers, when I arrange them on the floor, that they, as I said, like they create more like orchestras are very organized, very patriarchal, synchronized. So this is why I don't synchronize my speakers. So it's all about multiplicity. Sometimes the speakers, they play the same track, but with those micro delays. So it's like, there's a reference to Andy Warhol or to Walter Benjamin, and what is aura, which speaker is original, which speaker is a copy of the speaker. But it creates those like, but also a reference to polyphonic music by Georgi Ligeti and Xenakis. So when you play the same track, for example, on 200 speakers, they create this like very dense, very complex multi delay. But here the score is also written but because I wanted to create some like a rhizomatic structure, so the speakers create like different rhizomes on the floor. This is the fourth movement. The fourth movement is of course a scherzo, and here I decided to use also as a reference. A symphony was always looking towards dances, right, or entertainment music, or like in Mahler's. So I decided to use an existing track from this Canadian techno producer Aurora Centralis, and it's played. So we have 3 channels here. We have this is how the speaker should be organized, and I'm building I have a video out of it. Maybe I'll play at least that. Then I make this spiral out of the speakers, and then I start to organize them in this grid. And this is the preparation for the fifth movement. Fifth movement is theme and variations. And our theme is the C major chord, which is actually a quote from Krzysztof Penderecki's Polymorphia. This is how he ended his piece, and it was also in his music the beginning of postmodernism, and this is how he said goodbye, how he started to say goodbye to avant-garde. But so here the speakers are divided into 13 groups, and each group of speakers presents a different iconic chord or sound structure from the orchestral music from the 20th century. So you see, we start with Varese, the spiritual father of orchestra, of speakers. He was dreaming about creating electronic devices that will be able to play all different types of frequencies. Then we go to Wendy Carlos and her alpha scale. Then we go to eroica, because also there's the serial element. So each chord goes one step higher. So first we have C major, then we have Varese chord from Deserts with C sharp, then we have Wendy Carlos on D, then we have E flat eroica, and it's, for example, it's a collection of the opening chords from eroica from different recordings from Klemperer, ending up to today, to see how the articulation, how the tuning was changing. So all these speakers, they play tum 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 this eroica. And then we have Electra from Strauss. Then we have Tristan, a very important chord in the orchestral music. Then we have Petrushka, the bitonal chord. Then we have Stockhausen and Hu from Inori. Then we have the 741 hertz, and this is the frequency of the heart chakra. Then we have A, the orchestra is tuning, and so on and so on and so on. So this is I'm not going to talk about it. This is the symphony, also in a big shortcut, how the form of the symphony and how it works. If you want, maybe I can at least. What is this? Yeah. And we can slowly move to questions. So maybe I'll skip the video, or it's also so small that I can play it here if you want. Oh.
I think you just have to bring up the master on the board there.
Mm-hmm. This is it's a video from the dress rehearsal. I was so stressed here. I was really trying to survive. So these are the students, and the piece was cancelled. We don't have the orchestra, although it's a symphony, and instead of the orchestra we have 200 small wireless speakers. I decided to replace the orchestra and the humans with small devices, with small machines, because they become more and more important part of our... I was talking enough. Because the piece was... The original premiere was cancelled because of fucking Corona. One day we were packed, we were ready to go to the Donaueschingen, and then it got cancelled last minute. This festival in Donaueschingen, it used to be a very strict, very conservative, festival that is based on the same way of experiencing music, meaning we have to sit for a number of hours and we cannot move, and the only physical expression that we have in our body is clapping. And we as listeners, we do not only perceive music through our ears and eyes, but we feel music as vibration, and installation art also liberates, so they can because themselves more in this. Oh. This is scherzo. This is the end of scherzo, when this is the galaxy, this is the spiral, and we are moving the speakers from the spiral into the grid. So yeah, this is like a short. That's it.
I would have a question. So the speaker is not commanded by a handy. No, so how do you use SD card, something like that? SD card, exactly. Yes. And which kind of speaker you use? Because all the wireless speaker has the possibility to put a...
not all of them. It took some time to find the right speaker, right? Because as I said, make them anymore. But usually you always have to be careful because usually most of the speakers, they have like some stupid tunes, like like jingles. When you turn them on, you can probably hack them. You would probably know how to hack them. But this is, yeah.
It's nice.
Part of the music.
Yes, but it depends. What do you need, right? Like in my case, it would be a total nightmare if a jingle would sound like 200 times. So, for example, it was important for me to find a like jingle-free speaker, right? First of all, and they exist. Or they don't have like stupid rainbow lights blinking as well. So this speaker also just has like one red light, and which is actually very helpful, especially when you play in dark spaces, so you can see.
And do you have a name still existing that has these characteristics, so that you can do with a SD card or something like that?
Sorry.
Can you give me a name of a speaker?
Of the speaker? This one is called Easy ACC. Easy ACC. You can still buy some on eBay, but I also have from time to time I have to like search for them, because last time I was playing a concert in Kraków at Sacrum Profanum Festival, and Polish audience, of course, had to take some souvenirs with them back home. So 5 speakers are missing. Yeah.
Easy. Mini Bluetooth lost break.
Yeah.
That one. Maybe like this
Yeah,
one?
exactly.
Yeah.
What do you do, by the way, with all that gear? Because it's a lot of gear that you must store somehow.
With Body Opera, I mean, Body Opera. Actually, I'm going to get because if it's done by a theater, the theater stores everything, right? But I'm going to take the transducers from Nowy Theater in Warsaw because I want to have them. They have no space to store it, so I will have to rent a storage space.
Right.
The speakers, they fit like an IKEA cabinet. Actually, so they don't take so much space.
Yeah. But all those constructions that you showed.
No, this of course this belongs to a theater.
And if you want it to be reperformed, they rent it out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So the theater is like the main producer of the opera. So they're in charge. But in case of Body Opera, we don't use anymore those large elements anymore. So it's just the mats and the transducers. And this is I want to take it because it's good equipment and I want to work more with it. Yeah.
I have a question if no one else wants to go. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. I was really interested in the relationship between space and time in your work. I got the impression that in some cases you're kind of unrolling time into space, if that makes sense, or something that would happen in a piece of music in terms of form, just sound material changing, evolving over time. Is happening in different spaces and through the trails that you guide the audience through. So I was wondering if this non-linearity, this idea of the trail, also translates into the music somehow. So you didn't show a lot of examples from your scores. So are the scores linear, or is it also a kind of choose your own adventure type thing where the musicians can also create take non-linear paths through the score?
It's a very good question, and I will respond to it this way. For example, so in Transcriptum, right, we have some fragments of music that are very loud. This is for example, the duet for 2 accordions, and it's played on the 4th floor in this very long corridor. And I told you that trauma returns to your memory in returning dreams, or like some haunting motifs, like some haunting images. So for example, sound works like that as well. And so we walk around the opera house and we can hear those 2 accordions, but we don't know yet like what do they mean. And because we didn't make it to that space yet, and then we finally make it to the space, and then we realize, okay, I was hearing those 2 accordions, 1 floor higher or 1 floor lower. Like I was haunted by this sound, but I couldn't understand what that was until I made it to the space, and then I start to understand what this sound means, and then I leave this space, and still from time to time I can hear those accordions. So through the layers of the architecture as well. So in case of Transcriptum, for example, the linearity is purposefully. I will put it this way: every dramaturgy works like all of these trails, they have their own drama, like in a way linear dramaturgy. So when you move from piece of music to another piece of music, you have some time to reflect on what you heard, you have some time to prepare yourself for the next space, and so on and so on. When we are talking about, for example, about the first symphony, right? Here you have where you have orchestras in 4 groups. It's in your hands how you create your own linearity. The musicians, they play for 1 hour 30 minutes non-stop, and you can walk between them for as much as you want, and you can create your.
Maybe I didn't phrase this very accurately. So I meant that I get the non-linearity from the audience member's perspective, but I was wondering to what extent that applies to the musicians as well. So can they make decisions? Can they, or is the music is linear, and what is non-linear is the way that you experience it? I don't know if.
I mean, it always depends. Like Transcriptum has 7 pieces of music, right? And you can arrange them in different orders. It's also up to you how you curate the concert.
Oh, so the curators can make decisions.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe the score doesn't have a fixed order. You can play the pieces of music in any order. It depends on what kind of dramaturgy you want to build, right? Because you can start with the percussion solo and with the ensemble piece. Because at the end of Transcriptum, for example, the audience goes back to the auditorium, and all the musicians, they also for the only time they meet all together on stage, and they play the final piece, which is an ensemble piece with all the quotes from all the spaces the audience visited. So they have some sort of sense of closure, for example, at the end. But when you play Transcriptum just as a concert piece, for example, then you can play around with the linearity or with the order of the pieces. It's not fixed in the score, for sure.
But do the individual pieces have non-linearity as well?
No, they don't. They're very very fixed. They're very fixed. Maybe now I know what you mean. No. The scores are actually very detailed and very fixed and composed from point A to B. Yeah. Yeah, I wish I can also send you some of my scores if you want to. I can send it to Jason, and you can share like they're completely fixed. The scores are completely fixed. Yeah.
One question, I don't remember the title of the opera, but that was made in this very big particular space, like round. So it's really this space is in the piece, in the structure of the piece. So this opera could be performed only there or no?
No. As I said, like it was it can be done in any. So it can be done in any other space that is in a way related with the libretto of the opera, right? For example, we were approached by a film festival in one of the cities, and they offered us space that didn't make any sense for this opera, and we simply said no. But it was also done in those basements. And Transcriptum, it's a word created by an Israeli psychologist and an artist, and it means an artistic transcription of a traumatic experience. But there's also the word crypt, transcriptum. So crypt is also involved in this word, and basements are in a way crypts. So the basement is like the subliminal. We go underneath. Somewhere underneath, and then we have to explore the darkness and find the space. So no, it can be played in other spaces, places, for example, where water is present or darkness is present or confusing, maze-like structure is present as well. I would say, yeah. So it can be done in other spaces too. Or park opera was done in a park, and it was done in a forest also. And now it will be done on an island. So they have something in common, but they are different. Body opera was done on the in the sports gymnasium, in spaces like that, in the theater, in a black box theater. But also it was done in another Grand Theater in Luxembourg, on the main stage of Grand Theater of Luxembourg. And it was very interesting because people came to the opera performance like fully dressed, ladies, stiletto shoes, dresses. And we put down the iron curtain, and then they thought that they came to watch like the proper operatic performance. And then the iron curtain opened, and the lady from the theater, from the opera house said, "Now I invite you on stage." So people felt so uncomfortable. They had to go on stage and lay down on stage in the theater. But that was actually the gesture. That was the point, like to break this ice. And they had to take off their stiletto shoes and lay down on a yoga mat. So yeah. But for example, there was the premiere also was kind of like of body opera was a failure in a way, because it was done in a museum of sculpture of contemporary art in Wakefield, Hepworth, in the UK, and it was an industrial space, and the electric system failed the night before the premiere, and there was a brick floor, and we wanted people to lay down on the floor for an hour and a half while it was like seriously 10 degrees in the space. And this is a piece about reclaiming your senses and getting super like comfortable and massaged. I was devastated. My God, it was one of the most dramatic like moments in my career ever. And we get very little support from the festival itself. They didn't fix the heating, so we canceled. We canceled, and then the Polish Goethe Institute was negotiating between me and the director, and so at the end we decided to play the best of. So we wouldn't keep people for too long on the cold floor. So we did like excerpts of 40 minutes or so. But the audience was amazing. Even though they were like older people, they came. I felt so bad because you want to really create a nice. Also in Pittsburgh last time, I was a pain in the ass because they wanted to buy cheap mats, like very thin cheap mats. Because of money, of course, I was like, no, we tested this and obsessed. It took us a week. My God, how to find a cheap but yet foamy, thick mat so people would feel comfortable, and we found it. Yeah, you always have to test those things on yourself and make sure that they work.
Is it time for one more question, or do we need to move on? We can learn how much time did you prepare?
30-40 minutes probably.
Perhaps then we should move on.
Probably.
Yeah, if you have questions.
There was one last question. Should we?
No, it's just quick. And when it's going to be in Vienna, your park opera?
Park opera, when? July 6th, 7th, something like that? I can also send, I don't remember, yeah. It's in Villach. It's in Villach, yeah. Karintische Sommer. Yeah. So yeah, it's a great place for a vacation.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The island is insane. I truly invite you.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.